Welcome into your Weather Impact extended weekend forecast here on 13 WMAZ+. We're going to go over everything you need to know weather-wise for any outdoor plans and any fall fun that you have with friends and family. And along with that, we'll take a peek into what's in store for next week and give you an early look at your Halloween forecast. But we're going to start off with the October rainfall graphic because we actually did record some rain this past week. I believe that was back on Sunday, October 19th. Not too much in the way of rain, however, just over 1/10 of an inch of rain, but it puts us over a 1/2 inch of rain for the month of October as a whole. So we'll take any little bit of rain that we can get. But overall, October has been very dry with only 3 days out of the month that we have recorded rain. The most came back on October 6th, where we recorded just over 3/10 of an inch of rain. But all in all of these numbers add up to equate to just over a 1/2 inch of rain, somewhere around 0.57 inches of rain to be exact. This is at Middle Georgia Regional Airport, so of course some localized areas and regional areas will probably have some higher, or they could even have some lower totals. On average, we typically see just over 2¼ of an inch of rain in the month of October since we started taking data way back into the late 1800s. And your record, 1959, 9.39 inches of rain. Doesn't look like we're going to get anywhere close to that number, but that would be kind of a bit of a problem if we were to get really close to that number in the month of October. So as we take a look at the year of 2025 as a whole, you can see 2 consecutive red boxes, meaning that we've been below average for October and back in the month of September. But thankfully, both of these months kind of on the drier portion in terms of months of the calendar year where we receive more rainfall than others. And they came after we got this big cushion, this big green box right here for the month of August, 6 inches above where we should have been for the month of August in terms of how much rain we got. That came after a very dry July, but May and June themselves were both above average months in terms of rainfall. So when you add up all of these numbers, it goes in the positive direction still. Just under 2½ inches above where we should be for the entire year as a whole. And that's kind of based on average about where we should be at this point in October and this point in the calendar year. All of this data has been taken as of October 24th. So we're going to head into November and December. Still somewhat with a cushion above average as we are entering the last month of October here next week. But we did get a new update with our drought monitor, and it's kind of just essentially saying the same thing. We really need some rain here in central Georgia, but other areas of Georgia definitely need the rain more so than others. How about this patch of red that has popped up with the newest update? That is an extreme drought, so getting into one of the highest drought categories that you can see. That's just to the northwest of us, and we can see that a severe drought here in this kind of orange color does stretch into portions of west central Georgia. This didn't change with the latest update. We already saw areas of western Taylor County and western Upson County included in that severe drought. But all of central Georgia is under moderate drought conditions instead of the abnormally dry areas, which are your yellow shades. We did see many areas like Warner Robins, Perry, Macon, up into Milledgeville. All those areas were included in abnormally dry conditions for the last couple of weeks, but with little to no rainfall, we have seen the extension of many of that drought, or lots of that drought category. And then, of course, we are seeing areas of a severe drought creep over into eastern Johnson County, southwestern Chris County, and I imagine that we'll probably look at this to expand if we don't get anything in the way of rain with the next update, which will be next Thursday. However, we do have some rain chances on the horizon. However, let's go over what a moderate drought exactly means. This is going to mean that your crops are starting to be more vulnerable and the moisture content is really low in the soil. Gardens and lawns are going to require more water, and I'm already seeing a lot of people take action about with the actual tips that you should be taking. So make sure that you're watering your lawns, your backyard garden, any of your flower pots sometime in the early morning hours and then into the early evening hours, right there as you get closer and closer to sunset and as you're really close to sunrise, because it's going to limit the hours of evaporation that can occur. Say if you were to water your plants in the middle of the day when the sun's directly overhead. But I did mention that the moisture content in the soil is low. Obviously, if you give your flower pot a little bit of water, then you are going to increase the moisture content. But if you want to retain some of that moisture in the soil, put a layer of mulch on top of anything that you have in the way of soil in those flower pots. That's going to act as a bit of a blocking mechanism, and it's really just going to help the soil retain a little bit of that water just a little bit longer. But along with just your crops, we are seeing stream and pond levels. They are a lot lower. That means the water is shallower, so the temperatures in the water are going to increase. Typically, if you see a really deep portion of a lake, say Lake Tahoe, the water is really cold because the water is so deep. But if you are to run into a shallower body of water, say right there on the Atlantic or the Gulf Coast, when you go on the beach trip, you notice that the ocean water is pretty warm. A lot of that is just due to the fact that the water is shallower. So that is going to result in warmer water temperatures, and that can have some implications on the environment, but I won't go too far into that science lesson. Tree stress is going to begin, so premature leaf fall. That's been the main thing that we have seen as of recently. You may think, oh, okay, we're getting into the fall season, and it's a little bit of a combination of both. We are seeing premature leaf fall, but we also are beginning to see maybe some of the leaves change and start to fall from the trees. But we are seeing many of those leaves be discolored, so they're not going to be some of those fall-like colors that you're so used to seeing, and especially since we haven't hit the peak of fall foliage just yet. And along with that, lots of dead branches are going to begin to snap off trees, especially when you have your fair share of windy days, which we've had a couple of breezy days over the last week. But overall, we are going to continue to watch those symptoms worsen if we don't get any natural hydration from Mother Nature. And along with that, the vegetation is very dry. So it has resulted in our fair share of fire danger statements. We've actually seen these issued 3 days in a row across the state of Georgia, dating back to this past Wednesday, this past Thursday, and now one again as we head into Friday. So this one goes until 8 p.m. on Friday, and I wouldn't doubt that we may have one for some specific counties maybe on Saturday, but not likely on Sunday. This comes in light of relative humidity being around 20 to 25%. Don't get too focused on the percentage of that. Just know it's a very dry environment. Your dew point temperatures are a lot farther away from your actual temperatures each and every afternoon. Dry vegetation, with the lack of rain, obviously we continue to have those prime ingredients for allowing a fire to spread a lot more rapidly. And you need some breezy conditions. And these aren't terribly gusty. Winds out of the north around 5 to 10 miles per hour. That's not a super gusty day, especially when you compare it to past weeks where we've had wind gusts up to 20 to maybe 25 miles per hour. But essentially what these fire danger statements mean is outdoor burning is going to be strongly discouraged. Of course, over the course of this weekend, maybe many of you are starting to get a lot of that dead brush, that dead vegetation that you're trying to burn off and try to limit the debris in your yard. So this weekend, at least on Friday, maybe into Saturday, if you are a county outlined in this fire danger statement, you may want to think twice about participating in some of those controlled burns. So we do see almost all of northern Georgia included in this fire danger statement. And along with that, in our central Georgia counties, we see Putnam and Jasper counties up in our northern corridor, Hancock down to Washington, Johnson, Emmanuel, and then our southeastern counties, including Dodge, Lawrence, Wheeler, Telfair, Montgomery, Toombs, Treutlen, and Emmanuel counties. Those are the counties outlined in this statement as of Friday, so make sure that you're staying up to date if you are planning on doing any controlled burning on Saturday to see if your county, say Bibb County, Crawford County, over to Taylor County, is included in Saturday's fire danger statement. But now let's go ahead and talk about your weekend forecast. If you have any big plans with friends and family or just some typical fall fun that you want to go outside and enjoy maybe by yourself, go hit the pumpkin patch, go hit a fall festival, or get the Halloween celebration started just a little bit early. We are getting into around a week, less than a week until Halloween, and that's really rolling into that holiday season over the course of this next week. Going into 7 p.m. on Friday, so football Friday night, it is looking crystal clear in central Georgia, maybe a passing cloud or two as you're wrapping up games. But it's going to be more so a factor of the temperatures as you're heading out to those Friday night lights. We'll talk about those in just one moment. But let's go ahead and go into Saturday, where it may start out a bit gloomy. It may appear a bit gloomy in the sky. We'll have a combination of some upper level and some lower level cloud cover, some areas with denser cloud cover than others that are maybe providing you with a bit of shade. But that cloud cover should move out of the picture as we head into the afternoon. Maybe some very thin higher level cirrus clouds that aren't going to do a very good job of blocking the sunshine throughout your Saturday afternoon. Then we go into Saturday night, and Saturday night we already start to see a bit more widespread and denser cloud cover over to the west. We're going to start to build that in as we wake up on Sunday. So keeping this cloud cover in the forecast overnight will keep your morning low temperatures a tad bit warmer than, say, the low 40s and the upper 30s, which many areas of central Georgia have gotten down to over this past week. But we also have the potential for a few spotty light showers as you maybe are making your way out to church early on Sunday morning. This will continue to be the case. It looks like the farther east that you live all throughout that morning period before more widespread rain starts to approach from the west. So you see widespread rain back over into Alabama. That wall of rain will try to move into central Georgia as we head later into Sunday. But notice this right around lunchtime. Yes, you could be very gloomy, maybe a bit dreary with a very brief shower, but also we do see some spots of clearing. So not ruling out sunshine entirely for your Sunday, but it's going to be a brief window of seeing some sunshine if you do. And then as we transition into the late afternoon Sunday, 4 o'clock, still looking clear, but rain is right on our doorstep in our westernmost counties. It starts to move in as we head into the evening hours on Sunday, right there around 5 or 6 o'clock. And that rain mainly light in nature, but it is pretty widespread. So you do have a good shot at seeing some rain, but this isn't going to result in any real substantial totals as we head throughout the last half of your Sunday. This is 8 p.m. on Sunday evening, getting into the nighttime hours. Probably as many of you are winding down, preparing for the new work week ahead as we go into Monday. And Future View will go all the way out until the midnight hour on Monday, where we're still holding on to some rain and plenty of cloud cover during the overnight hours. So we'll pick it up with the long range models in just a little bit. But first things first, let's plan out all those weekend activities that you do have planned. 75, an amazing afternoon as you are heading out to maybe tailgate 13, and mostly sunny skies will continue to be the story. Down to 66 as you get into kickoff. So that's nearly a 10-degree drop over about a 2-hour period. And into final score time, especially if games go into overtime, you are going to want to bring a light jacket or some layering out there at the football games because temperatures will be at least down in the upper 50s, maybe the mid 50s, the longer and longer that games go on. Now taking a look at your weekend outlook as a whole, 78 for a high temperature on Friday afternoon, pretty similar to what we've done Thursday and this past Wednesday, but down to 74 on Saturday. So feeling a bit more pleasant. Morning low temperatures still in those lower half of the 40s, having a pretty good chill to them. And 52 will still be a pretty chilly start to your Sunday morning, but at least it's somewhere above the 50-degree mark as opposed to well down in the 40s or seeing a couple of upper 30s. But when we have the cloud cover that is going to be very widespread, not too many peaks of sunshine. I didn't completely rule it out for Sunday, but we aren't going to really have that good window of the warm up as we head into the afternoon that we would have on a mostly sunny day. So mostly cloudy. I wouldn't even rule out a few rumbles of thunder, but we're not looking at anything in the way of severe weather criteria. But about a 40% chance of seeing some showers as we head into the nighttime hours on Sunday. We may even elect to give that a bit of an uptick based on the coverage that we're now getting a good view of on our Future View model. So here's a look at the humidity. We obviously need more moisture in the air in order to sprout some more widespread rain chances. Well, if we keep dew point temperatures in the 40s and areas of no color present across central Georgia, you're not going to have anything in the way of rain. And it looks like low humidity will be in place through Friday and through Saturday before finally on Sunday, later on Sunday specifically, we start to see some of that light green creep back into the picture. But more humid areas are going to be present along the Gulf Coast. We've really got to start to see a surge in humidity to sprout some more widespread rain chances. And it doesn't necessarily look like, even as we go all the way to Monday or midnight going into Monday, that we really see a big bounce back in terms of the moisture content. So that makes me think that whatever we see in the way of rain will be relatively light or steady in nature, not going to really see any pockets of heavy rain or say maybe even a low-end thunderstorm unless we start to get some patchy areas of more humid air in the forecast. In terms of the winds, not going to be breezy really for your Friday evening, maybe a bit of a northerly gust that occasionally gets up to 11 miles per hour. As we go into Saturday, however, it's going to be a bit of a different story, especially Saturday night where we start to see wind gusts up to 20 miles per hour possible out of the east and the northeast. And then the gusty winds will continue to hang around in the picture into Sunday morning. So as you're heading out to church, maybe have your Sunday best on, it is going to be wise to maybe try to hop in that car while it's still in the garage before having to head outside and combat the elements. Going to be a pretty bad hair day in terms of a breezy Sunday that will last all throughout the morning, into the afternoon, and into the evening before we go into Monday in the overnight hours and early morning time frame. So if you are planning on heading out to the pumpkin patch, Saturday is going to be your day to do so. No chance of rain. Temperature is pretty chilly in the morning hours, but we should make that climb up into the 70s as we head into, say, around 1 or 2 o'clock. So all you boyfriends out there, you cannot use the weather as an excuse to not go to the pumpkin patch on Saturday. And it's going to be a perfect day to do so because the dogs have a bye week this weekend. Probably going to get in a lot of trouble for that, but please forgive me for that. And then Sunday, as we go into the day, the rain chances will increase really as we go into the evening and nighttime hours. I would say the morning hours is your best time to go head out to the pumpkin patch, but you may have to duck and dodge a very brief sprinkle shower or two, and it's going to be pretty gloomy outside, which will be great to give you that fall background in the pictures. But overall, temperatures are going to be a bit chilly on Sunday afternoon, not even reaching the 70-degree mark, and maybe only some limited periods of sunshine throughout the day. Now let's go into your football forecast this weekend. I did mention the dogs have a bye, which is a great thing for my heart rate after the last couple of games that we've had to watch the Bulldogs, especially last 2 games I've been to personally, the Ole Miss game and the Alabama game up in Sanford Stadium. Well, the Mercer Bears are going to be kicking off right there around 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday against VMI. So the Virginia Military Institute, I do believe, is that what that stands for. Sunset going to happen about 10 minutes before 7 p.m. So that's going to be kind of in about the 4th quarter time frame as you go to the Mercer football game. A bit chilly as you're heading out to tailgates around noon, 3 p.m. at kickoff. It should be an amazing feeling forecast. And then as you get into final score time, we're back into the upper 60s. Maybe some form of a light layering is going to be needed if you are heading out to Five Star Stadium to cheer on the Mercer Bears. And if you're going up to Atlanta, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets are back in town after heading up to Duke last weekend. They're taking on the Syracuse Orange at Bobby Dodd Stadium. It's an early kickoff, a 12 p.m. kickoff, so if you are planning on tailgating, say around 9 or 10 a.m., it's going to be chilly. 50 degrees, even though it's mostly sunny outside. That's not too far after the time frame when Atlanta is going to hit that morning low temperature for Saturday morning. Kickoff time, feeling a little bit better, but I think the temperatures are going to be warmer as we head into the 3 p.m. hour. We'll have lots of sunshine, but right there on the cusp of the 70-degree mark. Not really going to have to worry about sunset because many of you will already be at home after the game, after cheering on the Yellow Jackets for hopefully another win, but maybe I don't want to say that necessarily because I am a Dogs fan myself. And on Sunday, the Falcons are going to be playing the Miami Dolphins up at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. They haven't announced the roof status yet, but just given this forecast that I have, I would imagine that the roof status is going to stay closed. The possibility of a sprinkle shower during tailgate time in the late morning hours, then going into 1 p.m. I still think it's more of a mostly cloudy atmosphere, but these temperatures are chilly. Take a look at this. They don't get out of the 50s in Atlanta all throughout your Sunday afternoon. That's why I do imagine that the roof status will be closed because gloomy weather, not necessarily the biggest factor, but the last thing you want is a rain shower to come over Mercedes-Benz Stadium and just have kind of that halo and that circle of rain come through the middle of the roof at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. But hopefully the Falcons pull out a big-time W after dropping one to the 49ers last weekend on Sunday Night Football. And as you're heading home sometime around 4 or 5 o'clock, I do believe more rain is going to move through, and that rain is going to be pretty widespread as it approaches from the west and crosses the state line from Alabama. And your weekend grillcast, Friday and Saturday, go ahead and fire that thing up. But as we go into Sunday, that's a night that you probably want to order in or maybe do some meal prepping inside your kitchen, as it is going to be a bit of a messy into your weekend. Remember, those rain chances going to start to move in as we go into around 6 or 7 p.m. and then as we transition into the nighttime hours. Still widely scattered showers or even some pockets of steady rain, but it's not something that you want to be outside, say, by the grill at. And if you want to play some pickleball this weekend, Friday and Saturday are your best days to do so. But if you're going out in the morning hours, just know it's going to be a bit chilly. So some long sleeve t-shirts, maybe even a beanie if it's too cool for your liking. Sunday's the day that I would probably not recommend going out to the pickleball court because we do have the possibility of some morning sprinkle showers and temperatures are going to be pretty chilly. Last thing you want is to slip on a wet area on that pickleball court or somewhere maybe somewhere in the kitchen in terms of the pickleball court, and obviously that can result in some injuries. So we want to be safe rather than sorry, but I think Friday and Saturday you'll be able to get your fill of some pickleball fun. And my recommended weekend attire, afternoons, I still think you can get away with some short sleeve t-shirts. Definitely going to want the sunglasses as we go into Friday afternoon and Saturday afternoon. But mornings and evenings, you'll want to pack some form of a light pullover, maybe even a little bit of a heavier pullover, especially as we get into Sunday when temperatures are not forecasted to even get out of the 60s. But also keep that umbrella or the rain jacket handy as you do have any plans, say, to go to church on Sunday morning with the chance of a hit or miss sprinkle shower, and along with that, especially Sunday evening plans if you can't necessarily cancel them this close to when they're going to happen. So now let's pick it up with the long range models. We talked about the rain moving in later on Sunday. When is that rain going to get out? Well, it looks like it's hanging in the picture for most of the first half of Monday, but finally heading into Monday evening, it looks like the bulk of the rain is moving off to the east. All of this rain going to be courtesy of what we call a cutoff low pressure system. So typically these centers of low pressure, they do go from west to east a little bit farther to the north. So that's going to act as, or the jet stream is going to kind of act as a bit of a conveyor belt for those low pressure systems and move them from west to east. Well, this is just one that's kind of hopped off that conveyor belt and is a little bit farther down to the south, but it is going to result in widespread rain all over the southeast, hopefully a couple of inches in total. We don't get rid of the rain chances or the cloud cover for the morning on Tuesday and continuing into Tuesday afternoon. So it still looks like the gloomy atmosphere is here to stay for the second day of the new work week. But then finally some clearing and cloud cover and rain chances. We could see maybe some wraparound showers that try to creep down into the Carolinas, eventually down into the state of Georgia throughout your Wednesday. So I'm still maintaining a very low rain chance for your Wednesday afternoon at about 10%, the same rain chance that I do have for Monday. But then Thursday, we should have a cold front that will be attached to the southern part of that center of low pressure. That will start to sweep through, and that's going to dry our atmosphere out as we head into not only the second to last day of the work week next week, but also on Halloween itself. Here's 3 p.m. on Halloween afternoon, and it does look like maybe a few passing clouds, but overall, Frankenstein's over there dancing on Mississippi, so it's going to be a great forecast for your Halloween, but it's definitely going to be a bit chilly. We'll talk about that in a moment. Well, let's get into your rainfall graphic where you can see the GFS is hinting at maybe just a couple tenths of an inch of rain. The farther north that you go, looks like rain totals could be closer to the inch mark, which is more promising than what we've seen with the past couple of systems. However, the European looks even more promising than that. A bit of better resolution where you can get a good idea of those rain chances in some localized areas. And we don't see any totals over central Georgia cities that are over the inch mark, but these kind of purple shaded areas, that's getting up into the 2-inch mark. So we could have some isolated pockets up to 2 inches of rain, maybe even a good amount of widespread 1-inch rainfall totals, but still plenty of areas of that green color, which are just going to be a couple tenths of an inch of rain, maybe only about 3/10 of an inch of rain in areas like Dublin and Eastman. That's what this latest model runs. So continue to see what our short range models are saying about this rainfall as we head throughout the weekend. In terms of your morning low temperatures, I did mention that our fair share of cloud cover will keep the numbers a tad bit warmer as we go into the beginning of the work week. 54 as we start out Monday morning, but as the cloud cover gets out of here, those morning low temperatures drop back down, especially after the passage of our frontal boundary sometime between Wednesday into Thursday. 43 as you walk out the door Thursday morning compared to your average low of 50 degrees this time of year. But the flip side of that is your afternoon high temperatures are going to be a bit cooler because the cloud cover is blocking any sunshine that could reach the surface and maybe warm you up. So mid to upper 60s are your high temperatures all throughout the first 4 days of the work week as we go into next week. And then once again, Wednesday into Thursday, the passage of that frontal boundary will usher in some cooler and some drier air. So your high temperatures shouldn't bounce back up, even though we do get more clearing in the cloud cover. We are going to see some cooler high temperatures for the end of the work week next week. So let's take a look at that early Halloween forecast. You already saw what the long range models had to say, but I just took a snapshot of both of them. Maybe just some clouds, higher level clouds, maybe some lower level clouds as we go into Halloween next Friday. But your high temperatures, mid 60s. Yes, it is going to be a chilly atmosphere, not really going to feel that warmth as you go into the afternoon. And your morning low temperatures welcoming you out the door, and that will probably hit as we go into the evening and nighttime hours eventually going into next Saturday, which will be November 1st. How about some low 40s? You're definitely going to want to make plans to wear some layers under whatever Halloween costume that you do have planned, or if you're heading out with the kids, friends, or family to do some trick-or-treating next Friday evening. And going past that, we'll start the window on October 31st. So starting on Halloween itself, going all the way into November 6th, we have a pretty good probability of continuing to see those below normal temperatures. We're running, I guess I forgot to move the arrow right here, but it does look like we're running somewhere around that second and third category over from near normal. So the farther and farther that you go over to the left, or the farther and farther that you go to the right of that gray box in the middle, that's going to be greater chances of seeing below normal or above normal temperatures. And it looks like the blue is indicating that we are going to go into a cool spell for the first few days of the month of November. And in terms of precipitation, doesn't look like we have too much of that in your extended forecast after this low pressure system moves out of the picture. A good chance, well, not even really a good chance, but just one box over to the near normal box, which you actually can see still exists for areas of northeastern Georgia. But right there on the dividing line, looks like we have a slight probability of seeing below normal precipitation over this time period. We'll continue to keep our fingers crossed that some rain will be in the future. And looking ahead, Halloween 7 days away, and if you're watching this on Saturday or Sunday, going to be 6 or 5 days away. That's going to be happening next weekend. And something else that's happening next weekend, the time change, that's going to happen in 9 days. Election Day going to happen in 11 days, and then Veterans Day a week after that. It's going to be a random Tuesday that most kids have off of school. So for daylight saving time, this will be our fallback. We are sacrificing the late sunsets for an extra hour of sleep, but right there at 1:59 in the morning, the clock is not going to go to 2 a.m. after that. It's going to go all the way back to 1 a.m. if you have an automatic clock. Now, if you do have a manual clock, make a reminder to wake up on Sunday and flip that clock about an hour back. So that will be happening on November 2nd. And your days will continue to get shorter. Soon we'll have just around 10 hours of daylight throughout the day. And after that time change, the sunset going to be before 6 p.m., but the sunrise going to get a bit earlier. And then the shortest day of the calendar year, the first day of winter, 7:33 is when that sun will rise, but the sun will begin to set around 5:32 in the afternoon, right there around the time many of you are heading home from work and maybe even some after-school activities. And I did mention the peak fall foliage. We are starting to see some leaves fall, but that's also kind of contributed by our drought monitor, our moderate drought that we're under. We'll start to see a lot of those vibrant red, yellow, and orange colors here in central Georgia sometime in mid-November. So maybe in about the next 3 weeks or so. If you can't wait, you want to see some of that fall foliage really quickly, I would advise making a trip up into the North Georgia mountains where they're expected to see peak fall foliage as we head into the end of this month, so over the next week or so. Now let's check in on Tropical Storm Melissa, where we do see, yes, Melissa is going to continue to meander down here in the middle of the Caribbean, and it's forecasted to go along the west coast of Jamaica, eventually over Cuba as a Category 3 storm. Melissa is actually forecasted to gain Category 4 status by the time we roll into Monday morning. But right now, still no U.S. impacts are forecasted. We can see here on your spaghetti plots, there's a good amount of agreement that Melissa will go over to the north just south of Jamaica, and a very good amount of agreement that it's going to move over Cuba or portions of the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos and go back out into the Atlantic Ocean. The European spaghetti plot says Melissa is going to take more of a path towards Central America, but eventually it will curve back out and go back over Cuba and the Bahamas into the Atlantic Ocean. And in terms of your current watches and warnings, we do see Jamaica and Haiti issued in tropical storm warnings, which I imagine will increase into hurricane warnings as Melissa will strengthen in this portion of the Caribbean Sea, but no other areas outlined as of right now. And in terms of your names, we cross off Melissa, so that means Nestor is going to be the next name on the hurricane season list. And for 2025 as a whole, Melissa was the 13th named storm. It is forecasted to become our 5th hurricane of the year and even our 4th major hurricane of the season, which will put us right on what Colorado State forecasted for major hurricanes, but we're still well off the numbers for just general hurricanes and general named storms, but creeping closer and closer to average for this time of year. and we don't have too much time left in hurricane season in order to hit those averages. We are going to see hurricane season end at the end of November on November 30th, and typically we don't see too much tropical activity in the month of November, but we are going to continue to keep our eyes on Melissa and whatever else the Atlantic Basin does try to pop up in terms of a possible area of development. So that will do it for your extended weekend forecast. We'll be back on Monday at 11 a.m. for a look at what's ahead for Halloween week here in Central Georgia and giving you all the fall fun forecasts and hopefully some cooler temperatures. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on Monday.